Good evening. Welcome to NDTV Profit. I'm Vikram Oza, and this is the big question. And of course, the big question that we're asking is our headline. That is the real trigger that got the tech world thinking. Home Minister Amit Shah has switched his office from Microsoft to Zoho Mail. Yes, some would call it a symbolic move that's being read, of course, as more than just a change in email service. But is this the dawn of digital Swadeshi 2.0? Is the larger question that we're asking. Could this signal that India is ready to challenge Silicon Valley on its own turf? From the Prime Minister's Buy Indian clarion call, to the government's digital Bharat push as well, to the rise of homegrown champions like Zoho. Now the question is, can India's software succeed on global merit, not just national sentiment? Because there have been instances when we've seen failures as well, like the platform Coup, for one, which crashed despite policy tailwinds. Zoho, on the other hand, has soared. So what really drives success? Government support, or is it pure market grit? Should India really compete head-on with Silicon Valley, or should we collaborate with Silicon Valley to shape probably a fairer digital world? And are we building digital sovereignty or drifting towards digital isolation when we pick either of these two routes? Of course, with UPI and India Stack and DigiLocker, AI, of course, and our own chip-making ambitions, all of them are powering India's tech backbone. But can we match the innovation tempo of the Valley without its VC billions of dollars and deep R&D muscle as well? Of course, with Zoho's 100 million users across 150 countries and $10 billion plus SaaS exports, that could really, the question is, could Indian tech become the new growth engine like IT services did 2 decades ago? So that is our big debate tonight. Our big question on NDTV Profit: can Swadeshi tech win on merit? And to take this on, we have a great panel. Anup Pai is joining us. He's co-founder and CEO of e-Samudai from Udupi, which is, of course, as far as towns go, Udupi stands as an example. He, of course, a homegrown entrepreneur who's been working on decentralized digital ecosystems. Dhruv Bhutani is also with us, a tech expert who's tracked India's digital evolution from close quarters. And indeed, we have this great discussion right now about the entire debate, gentlemen, which began when Home Minister Amit Shah switched his office from Microsoft to Zoho Mail. But it's been in the making, this question. Of course, it's about India's digital confidence. And Dhruv, why don't I start with you? Why don't you tell us what this shift really signals? Of course, it's coming from Amit Shah right now. But do you think it's a symbolic nod to digital Swadeshi, or do you think it's a serious statement that Indian software is now good enough to replace global giants on merit?
Yeah, I think there's never been a question that Indian software is good enough to replace. But also, there's an entire ecosystem of the software stack that comes with it.
Yes.
And Zoho's popularity, as you mentioned, about 150 million users across the world. Zoho has been a pretty strong player in the enterprise space for quite some time. I think the only thing that's been surprising to me with this switch over is that it's a government official that we're talking about. It should be an NIC hosted email. But as far as Zoho goes, I don't think there's any surprise that the government is making a move to shift from Microsoft-based hosting to Zoho. You have more control over data sovereignty, and it's a credible product that lives up to it and helps boost the entire the India Stack movement, so to speak.
The India Stack movement is an important piece. Anup, you agree? You're building e-Samudai out of Udupi. It's far from the traditional tech hubs, but does the next wave of Indian innovation, you think, actually lie in small-town India rather than a Bengaluru or a Palo Alto?
No, actually, it's not just about the location. I think the bigger question is for us to care about data sovereignty. So far, India is not really worried about data sovereignty. Nobody is really worried about data. We've just followed wave after wave of Silicon Valley innovations and just been followers in this 25 years of digital development that we've had on the internet. But the real question to ask is, what next? What about the data that gets generated on this massive set of applications that are run? And broadly, how do we take advantage of this data set that's getting generated? You talked about UPI. While it's a great innovation and it's helped a lot of new applications that has developed. But the data on UPI, which is spending behavior of almost 800 million Indians, is in the hand of two corporations who are both US registered corporations. So I think we need to start worrying about data itself and what information processing that's happening on this data that we are generating as
And
a digital nation.
That's what I'm kind of alluding to, that if we are generating this kind of data, we are a consumption-driven economy at the other level, and we are banking on it big time. The Prime Minister, when he's speaking about the Swadeshi movement, he's talking about buying Indian. We are talking about creating ecosystems that is going to help the economy further. But like you're pointing out, you did mention India Stack, Dhruv. UPI is something else that is being mentioned by Anup. You know, the government support is an important piece over here. So what's your take on how the government should be involved in India's digital drive? Are we doing it in a way that makes us too protectionist? How exactly do you think the government should be involved in this entire digital push?
Yeah, I've got a couple of thoughts on that. But like as Anup said, I think prima facie, we need more stronger data protection and data privacy laws. I think that needs to be set in stone right at this moment when the government is taking such a proactive stance about the India stack. And I think, broadly speaking, of course, government support for Indian software ecosystems is always good to see, and it helps push the movement forward. Uh, but yeah, I think starting off with setting stronger data privacy and data security policies would be my would be the way to go. I mean, if we look at Aratai, Zoho's messaging app, now a lot of comparisons are being drawn that WhatsApp was never end-to-end encrypted to start with. Well, that's true, but we're talking about an app that's competing in 2025, not when WhatsApp was end-to-end encrypted. So all of these guidelines, these policies, all of that needs to come together to sort of give the entire movement a push.
When you're talking about data privacy, at this stage, you think there are missing links as far as India is concerned. Our laws are not watertight, is what you're indicating. What are these missing links, Dhruv?
I think it mostly comes down to enforcement. Now, I mean, I'm not an expert on this, but I think maybe like perhaps Anup, since he's working in
Let
this
me ask Anup. Anup,
field,
where do
he
you
might
think,
be.
yes, absolutely, I agree. Anup, where do you think are the missing links right now, since you're working out of Udupi, but of course you're making a product that would be something that millions would use. Tell us exactly what you think are the missing links, since you said we are generating this kind of data. Our privacy laws, our entire ability to be able to deal with our data, that data sovereignty that you spoke about, where do you think are the problem areas right now?
Yeah. So let's start with the basic stuff. I mean, to do anything with data, we need data centers. So we lack big time when it comes to data centers. Most of our data leaves the country, other than what the banking sector set up as part of the core banking implementations. Data leaves the country. For example, we don't have any data centers set up. There are some initiatives that are being run by Reliance and other large corporations to set up data centers in India. But we can do it with a lot of ground-up innovations when it comes to micro data centers. That's the direction in which the industry is shifting. While the big tech companies are moving in the giga data center direction, the rest of the industry is moving in the micro data center direction. We lack the infrastructure to host data, to process data. Second, the ecosystem, which is developers and entrepreneurs working on these data applications that are local. Most of our developers are, follow the next wave from Silicon Valley. AI has taken up a bunch of our developers right now. We don't have good developers working on the India stack. We come down to a few volunteers and maybe even fractions of their time when it comes to working on India stack related activities because they don't see the money in it. There's no money in working in digital sovereignty, for example. I can prove it, right? I mean, since the time I've started, I've seen more and more money not coming to the sector. So these are the two things. I mean, laws will follow. I think the laws are there. In India, we have good laws. I mean, we can always critique the laws, but where is the data to govern? I mean, it all leaves our country right now. I mean, there's no data to manage at all.
So we need those data centers. But when you start talking about money, it brought up an important point in my head. When you're talking about Zoho, which was our starting point, the trigger for this conversation, that's where we are seeing 100 million users and about zero dependence on VC capital. So this bootstrapped model, is that the exception, or is that really the future of Indian entrepreneurship? How are you doing it? Because like you're saying, capital has always been an issue.
So bootstrapped, ground up building, income revenues is the only way to do this. Once money enters the fray, they want the hockey stick, and the hockey stick can only be gotten if you're given, freebies. The entice, model that Silicon Valley has followed. With the VC model, I mean, give freebies to the consumers, get them hooked on a platform. WhatsApp is an exception. We'll talk about WhatsApp separately. Overall, any commercial application platform has taken large amounts of capital. Billions and billions of dollars have been consumed in getting both sides of the marketplace brought in. That kind of capital is not available to homegrown technologies. I mean, there's nobody operating in this ecosystem other than a few volunteers and maybe iconoclasts at all. I mean, there's no serious development till Zoho, and Aratai is a great example. I think there's a lot of debate about the lack of end-to-end encryption.
Yes.
It'll come. I mean, it'll come over time. I mean, I think there's no, for example, we boast about end-to-end encryption in WhatsApp. And I'm highly skeptical of Meta as a company. I mean, given Cambridge Analytica and all that. I don't know how much I would rather trust math or whatever it is. Because they've been sharing information, business information on WhatsApp even. So I would rather trust a homegrown entrepreneur like Sridhar Vembu and be a Aratai user.
Yes.
And use WhatsApp where I can. I mean, I will use any tool that's available to me. But over time, I would rather shift to something that is homegrown, where I have the entrepreneur, I know the entrepreneur, I can connect with him. And he's not out there to capture, right? I mean, like Meta is or Google is.
Fair enough. Let's get more perspective on this entire capital business. And joining us in this discussion is Shailesh Vikram Singh. He is managing partner at Climate Angels Fund and also CEO of Massive Mobility. Great to have you with us, Shailesh. We're trying to fix your connection, but that's a story in itself. But Shailesh, since you invest in early stage innovation, tell me, can India really build world-class deep tech without having the kind of funding muscle that Silicon Valley does, even its R&D ecosystem? Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, it's very much possible. We are seeing every day. So I always say that in India, whatever you see in 5 years, it changed drastically.
Right.
Whether it is cities, whether it's the infra, whether you see technology, look at the companies, what we are having today, right? So I think the story is not as bleak as others are thinking. Of course, there are always challenges, and there always will be challenges. But I think there's enough opportunities. And like say in our portfolio, we are seeing companies which have built very, very strong technologies within India, and something are being exported to in the US. So I see continuously this is happening. And when we talk of deep tech, see, deep tech can't start from somewhere in the outside, right? It starts from a very low part.
Correct.
So like say, whenever people think of deep tech, they think that will bring very large efforts and will plant it. My other panelists talked about ecosystem. The ecosystem starts from very small grass, a small microorganism, right? Amoeba, and then you build a forest. So I think this part is totally missing. And I think we have to start with very small pointers. And that is what it is going to happen.
But Zoho is not small, Shailesh. Zoho is not small. They've dreamt big and they're achieving big. So when you see like Indian alternatives come up, Coup has seen a rise and fall despite policy support. But what separates a Zoho from a Coup according to you? Is it execution? Is it vision? Or is it simply timing?
I think, there is a network claim. The founders of WhatsApp also launched Signal, but it didn't go anywhere, right? So Zoho is a very stable company. We ourselves use Zoho, and a lot many products are Zoho today. Coup is the one failure, but see, in a VC world, there are hundreds of failures and 2 successes, right? We should, and the issue is to have 2 successes, we have to have the 100 failures. So when the Coup kind of companies come, they just, even if they die, it doesn't matter because there are enough people who got trained. There are enough entrepreneurs were there, right? So new companies will start. So these are part of the process. Every big boom in technology or anything else is always preceded by a big bust, right? Whether you see .com bust, clean tech bust, and they will always be bust there, right? But they create more values, they create more opportunities. So that's why I see that is there. Now coming to Zoho versus Coup, I think Zoho is a much more very strong player, much more used. Tech Muscles is very, very smart. And then they are not dependent on quarter to quarter funding, right? So they have what you call deep pockets to support this. So that's why they have the edge. And I think the government is also pushing it. So I think Zoho will ultimately can win the game.
Let me
I'm
take
very
this
hopeful
across
of
to
that.
Dhruv as well. Dhruv, do you agree with what Shailesh is saying? Because he's saying that we need to start small, but now we have to hit the ground running, as it were. The opportunities are there right now. Our global funds and, of course, Indian VCs, do you see them truly backing deep tech innovation over here, or are we still chasing some clones of Western ideas right now?
No, absolutely. I mean, just like as Shailesh mentioned, you have to start small somewhere, and I think we're past that point where we're starting small. The ecosystem is developing quite fair, largely, and even in the AI space, we're seeing Indian startups put in a lot of work. So I think it's good days ahead.
Thinking there are good days ahead. Anup, what about the hardware? Let's talk about that for a moment, because India's chip and semiconductor ambitions are still quite nascent. You think we can be a global tech power if we don't own the hardware backbone? You did talk about data centers, but in terms of our ambitions when it comes to creating those chips, those semiconductors, we're still at a very young stage. So can we do it without having all of that in place?
So we got to make a start. So the data centers with commodity chips, commodity hardware data centers is what I think we can install right now. I mean, without any problems, without any innovation challenges and all that. Give it another 5 years, the semiconductors and chip innovations have already started, investments have started. It's a matter of jump-starting the ecosystem. It's about going down to the basics. Commodity hardware, how do you run a good data center, automation around it, virtualization, in-house software around virtualization. All of this has happened already. I mean, that's the good news. In the last 5 years, ever since this ecosystem has started forming, these are self-funded companies that are building these technologies. I'm myself in Udupi, starting from ground, right?
Yes.
How can we make Udupi a small district in India? How can we make it a digital republic where we have homegrown applications that are used by the citizens of Udupi? I think we made some good progress, and maybe in the next year or so, you'll see Udupi citizens using homegrown applications. And then how do we export it to the rest of the districts? And mind you, export to the world. I know cities in the US that want to have their own digital sovereignty stack. I mean, there are a lot of cities in the US, in Europe. There's a lot of interest in stopping the control ecosystem that the big tech has started. And I think India can export to that market.
So big tech, of course, is investing heavily in AI, and that's the route that we are taking. I'm just wondering how much of that you're bringing in to the product that you're creating for Udupi, Anup.
So right now, it's a very simple ground-up set of applications. So when you look at AI, I mean, AI comes on top of the data layer, right? I mean, we are trying to go to human intelligence first. I mean, there are applications of pure human intelligence, people connecting with each other.
Right.
That doesn't need a lot of AI, right?
Correct.
I mean, once you have the data set, we have all the makings of an AI superpower where data that is harnessed locally is processed locally, and intelligence is served locally and shared globally. Right. Now let's come to data itself. Data has something known as half-life. So let's say we're losing data today to the West, to Silicon Valley. You cut that umbilical cord. The data that they have starts to decay because it doesn't get fresh data.
Right.
We need to start with small use cases. I mean, starting with hyperlocal use cases to begin with. How can we get hyperlocal apps to work locally with local data? and then scale it from there. I mean, small steps, and then we become a digital nation ground up.
So we're circling back to starting small. Shailesh, you brought that point in, and like we're hearing from Anup and indeed from Dhruv as well, India has the data. We have the scale. We also have the engineers. But now the question is about the innovation culture. Do we have that to turn what we have as our big investments already? How do we use that into cutting-edge AI products? Isn't that the need?
Yeah, I think, it's a very, well, I say it's a complex question, but you have to see the journey, right? So we have to be the journey. Let's say we say, okay, well, why don't we have OpenAI kind of infrastructure? Obviously, we don't have, because the kind of money being pumped in there is almost a $1 trillion kind of money which has gone into capex in last 2 years into AI hardware. I think the debt alone is around $3.1 trillion, right? There's a debt alone by the AI companies. So of course, there's very different skills we're talking. When coming to India, I think we have our own advantages. I'm seeing the startup which are building a layer on top of what we call application layer. They are being building on the OpenAI has been building. So there are multiple nuances of the innovation which is happening, and we are seeing very positive impact of it. Coming to starting small, let's say way back in 2006, seed fund invested in a company called Red Bus. It was just doing one bus ticket a month. Today it sells close to 100,000, probably 200,000 tickets every day. So everything start small and become very, very big, right? So while there's a lot of noise today on the AI, but I think I will not say that we have lost the race or the game is over. I think people are just creating too much what you call pressure right now. But I think the story is on. I think there are a lot of nuances here.
Perhaps the game is not over. The game is perhaps just beginning. But are we saying that we have a lot of catch up to do? Because I started out by asking if India should position itself as a competition to Silicon Valley. Or do you think, considering all of our current situation, we should think of ourselves and position ourselves as a partner of Silicon Valley? Because that's what it's seeming like, that we have the data and all of that. We can build products and bring it to big tech as well over in Silicon Valley. But we have the ability to provide the scale, the market, the cost advantage. So should we be partners or should we be competitors to them?
I think the way geopolitics is today, right? You are partner and company at the same time. I think we have to apply the same in tech also. So there are a lot of things which you need to build. Like say this Zoho Mail is a very simple example. It's the most simple application running the internet for the last 30 odd years. I think we need to have our own, right? Because there's a fundamental layer which drives everything. So we need to have all those. We have to build. So we have to be competitive in some and be collaborative in some. We have to decide. Where we don't have the edge, we have to collaborate. But where we can, we should build the competency. I think that's very essential. I think there's a high time that India need to what other competitors said, other panelists said, that we need to build our own data center.
Yes.
And we are building. So I think those are starting.
Yes.
Yeah.
But building this confidence, that's an important one. Anup, we've talked about the software layer. We are talking about digital backbone. But what about the trust and the adoption from the user side? Can Swadeshi tech actually win the Indian consumer without global validation? You think that's even possible?
That's our secret sauce, actually. I mean, trust is our secret sauce.
Yes.
I mean, I'm in Udupi, right? I mean, I talk about customer acquisition cost. I mean, I don't even like the term customer acquisition cost.
Right.
I mean, everybody in Udupi knows everybody, right? I mean, it's a small town. With the right ideas, with the right networks, and we are all networked in the small town. We are all networked. It doesn't take much for us to spread a digital product. I mean, first we need to make it. I mean, that's a different story. But for us to be able to bring us all together, is really not a big deal. And I feel that's our secret sauce. I mean, India has run on trust for generations, way before the West even existed. So I think that's easy. Now, when it came that question of should we compete or should we collaborate with Silicon Valley, I really think there is a space for sustainability when it comes to digital ecosystems. What Silicon Valley is building is not sustainable. I mean, even their data centers are killing the electricity grid. It's massive infrastructures that are heat generating and all of that. Plus, we've already seen the impact of big tech when it came to the three general elections in the United States. I mean, it's been quite a disruptive influence that the big tech has had in the US elections. Right?
Correct.
I mean,
yes, indeed.
It's visible.
Yes.
So it's not sustainable. I mean, this kind of influence is not good in general, and India stands for this culture of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. I mean, let's all do this together. What's this thing about a few billionaires becoming trillionaires or whatever, and then the rest of us have to just eat the scraps out of what they leave for the rest of us, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's not the way India sees life. Right?
Correct.
I mean,
so we have a different model. We have a different
Yeah.
model of growth, which is more inclusive rather than exclusive, and whether we
Yep.
can bring it to our tech aspirations at a time like this, when everyone is turning so much more protectionist. Even we are talking about India and Swadeshi, and that kind of movement is something that we are pushing for. But it's been a fascinating exchange. Digital Swadeshi to digital sovereignty, bootstrapped grit to big-ticket VC bets. It's quite apparent that India's tech story is now writing its own script. There's no doubt about that, though, of course, we could be starting small. But whether we compete with Silicon Valley or we collaborate with it, now the real test is going to be whether Indian innovation can win not just hearts at home, but markets abroad with the kind of innovation that we do. And that would mean we are going ahead purely on merit. And if Zoho's global success and Amit Shah's symbolic switch have told us anything, it is that India no longer wants to just use the world's software. We want to build it. But on that note, a big thank you to my guests, Dhruv Bhutani, Shailesh Vikram Singh, Anup Pai. Thank you for that insightful conversation. And our viewers, remember, the next big tech disruptor may not come from Silicon Valley. It could just as easily come from Panipat or Pune or Udupi for that matter. I'm Vikram Oza. This is The Big Question. Thank you for joining us on NDTV Profit.